From shinobi to soulmates, and now parents. What if Naruto and Hinata had twins? Possible trail behind. Almost. He ducked into a narrow alleyway, skidding to a stop behind a large stack of stock crates. He fell to his knees and hugged them close, praying that they wouldn't find him here. He waited silently in the quiet, desperately trying to control his ragged breathing before they neared his hidden location. A few moments later, his suspicions were proved. Footsteps thundered past the opening to the alley, the flickering light from the torches illuminating faintly against the dark. "Where is he, the little freak?" a gruff voice spat, angry that his target was missing. "The trail ends here," another voice relayed. The child flinched. He had left behind evidence. Evidence that could lead them to where he was now. Maybe he ran down here. Hid behind one of the trash cans. An unknown figure suggested, stepping into the dark doorway. The boy tensed, preparing to make another dash. "Hold on, I think I see him," a woman's voice called, sounding far off. "Come on everyone," the apparent leader shouted. "Death to the demon," a man yelled, gaining a chorus of war cries and agreements in response. Soon, the noise faded into night, leaving the child alone to wallow in his misery. "They do not understand your worth," a voice murmured, sounding from all directions. The boy's head snapped up and glanced wildly around the area, searching for the voice's owner, and possibly, his next attacker. "They only fear what you cannot and could not control," the figure said again, seeming closer now. The child whimpered, squeezing his body into the smallest target he could make it, and braced for the blow. "Fear not, I do not seek to harm you," the man's voice called. Out of the shadows, a teenage boy appeared, his shoulder-length raven hair tied into a small ponytail. He had droplets of blood covering the Anbu uniform he was currently wearing, and the leaf shinobi handband had a long scratch going through the symbol. "Who are you?" the fair-haired boy stuttered in question, his eyes wide, his defensive position never failing. The teen smiled softly. "My name is Itachi Uchiha. I have been watching you for some time now and I can defiantly say you have some promise," he explained. "You already show signs of great talent, and you will become something of greatness, with proper training," Itachi continued. The boy only looked on in cautious confusion, unsure of where the seeming friendly teen was getting at. "Let me ask you, do you hate the way these blind villagers have treated you?" the Uchiha prodigy asked. Not even having to think about his response, the child nodded, slowly uncurling himself from his protective stance. "That's why I want to be Hokage," he answered simply and quietly. Itachi nodded understandingly. "Oh, but to change these villagers' opinions, you will have to become something even more. A legend," Itachi explained. "A legend," the boy repeated, mulling this over in his mind. "If you come with me, I will train you all I can. I will make you the greatest ninja there ever lived, greater than all the Hokages combined. You will be the best, the legend in children's bedtime stories. All you have to do is leave this village, with me," Itachi offered. The boy bowed his head the spiky blonde strands falling over his eyes. Could he really leave the village hidden in the leaves? With someone he'd meet only a few moments ago? Could he really trust this, Itachi? Of course he wanted to become great, it was his lifelong dream. He'd do anything for that ambition to come true. Even if that meant dying in the process. He glanced up at the Uchiha, his gaze hard and strong, one of a great ninja in the making. "I will follow you anywhere, if that means my dream will be realized," the boy answered in a firm voice, standing from his corner, his sapphire eyes glinting boldly. Itachi smirked. "Then come with me, Naruto Uzumaki. Today, we begin. Today, the legend is born." And on that night of October 10th, an Anbu captain and a small child left the village, unnoticed, into the darkness of the outside world. There we are. The first chapter of the Fire Fox legacy. Short, but that's how prologues usually are. QB Kitsune. Next chapter, Return. Now that I have helped you with your dream, it's time you help me with mine. Anything for you, Master Itachi. Chapter 2, Return. Return. Normal monologue. Thoughts. Kyuubi. Kyuubi's thoughts, summoning. Jutsu. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. 8 years later. Are you glad to be coming back? A raven-haired man asked, his face shadowed by the casa on top of his head. The boy next to him smirked, his blonde hair blowing in the slight breeze. Ecstatic. He replied, the sarcasm in his tone deep. Naruto had certainly changed in the 8 years he had been on the road. He sported black capris, going to just below his knee line. He was wearing a dark orange shirt underneath a black jacket, which was halfway unzipped. He was also wearing a necklace that consisted of 3 red tomes, almost exactly like the Sharingan. He had grown much, making 5 feet even. His blonde hair had only been cut a few times during the last couple of years, the spiky bits ending right above his eyebrows. Strapped firmly to his back was a single sword, sheathed in a case of firm leather. Naruto, now that I have trained you, and giving you the knowledge and skills to become the greatest legend of all, there is something I want you to give me in return, Itachi said, glancing at his pupil beside him. Naruto nodded. Anything for you, Master Itachi, he answered simply, his voice soft. Itachi smirked, the boy would do anything if it meant pleasing him. It was a very good thing. Okay, me intentions are easy, I wish to destroy Konoha. And I need you to do it, from the inside, Itachi explained, measuring the boy's response intensely. Naruto just shrugged. No problem. Any details? He asked. Itachi nodded, that was fairly easy. I have a few alliances I still need to work out. I'll let you know soon. Just keep your radio with you at all times, the Uchiha replied. Naruto nodded again in understanding, the gates coming up on them fast. They cast long shadows along the ground, signifying that it was close to noon now. Now, this is where I take my leave. I am a disbanded ninja, while you were only presumed dead. You will be undercover as a genin here, so you will be put in their class. And whatever you do, don't show them everything you know, Itachi instructed, turning to leave. Naruto bowed, his eyes closed respectfully. Yes, master, he replied, watching as his friend and former sensei vanished into the black. Now one of the Leaf Village's weak, pathetic ninja would be his teacher. He rolled his eyes. Pathetic. He whipped around on his heel, the movement like a fluid dance as he was so good on his feet now. He strode confidently through the gates, right past the guard booth, not even bothering to stop. Excuse me, I need to see your pass. One of the guards, Genma, called after him. The blonde turned slightly, just enough for the guard to see his face, and continued to walk away. Immediately, the Chunin was silent, his jaw dropped. What is it, Genma? Kotetsu wondering, curious as to why the one intruder caused the man to stiffen into stone. That's Naruto Uzumaki. I'd recognize those whisker-like scars anywhere, Genma stuttered, his face white. Kotetsu's eyes widened. Didn't he die 8 years ago? The bandaged shinobi questioned, staring after the boys retreating back. Genma shook his head in denial. No, he disappeared. But after almost a year of no response, Hokage-sama closed the case and labeled him deceased, reluctantly of course. You know he always had a heart for that boy, although no one could ever figure out why, the Senbon chewing man replied. So, he's back, Kotetsu yelled, standing up in utter surprise. We need to contact the Hokage, he added, scanning the area for a nearby patrol. Calm down, Kotetsu. I'm sure the boy is on his way there now. I mean, he's going to want to jump right into the academy, although he will be so far behind. I'm not sure if he'll even be able to pass with this year's class, Genma said, catching his partner by the arm. The other Chunin sighed. Yeah, you're right. He's never going to pass that exam, not without Iruka's training. And with only 1 day to go, the poor boy's got no hope, Kotetsu answered, chuckling a bit. Little did they know, one of Konoha's most dangerous villains was hiding in a tree overlooking the guard's station, smirking softly. Little do you know, is that Naruto canon will exceed you all. And then, your precious village will fall. The old man Hokage was bent over his slowly depleting pile of papers. He stamped his approval on one and then turned to the next, sighing heavily. I'm getting too old for this. I think my back will forever be in this scrunched over position after the day I retire. A steady knocking interrupted his thoughts, snapping him back into reality. Come in, he commanded, his voice a little raspy from disuse. He glanced up, looking to see the ninja that needed his assistance. And who he saw standing there made him almost jump out of his chair in surprise, but he was positive his bones wouldn't move that fast. The little blonde Jinchuriki that disappeared so long ago, the boy he thought he had lost. the Yondaime's last and final wish. Although the small child he remembered had changed considerably. Naruto, what a surprise, the Hokage said, smiling widely, the wrinkles around his eyes crinkling into the expression. The boy didn't respond to the gesture at all, he only stood in the doorway, his face blank. I've come to you on a request, he stated simply, walking up to the chair in the center of the room, silently leaning back. Needless to say, the Sandaime was shocked of the boy's cold nature. He had always been a smiling, warm-hearted kid in the past. But he had been gone for almost a decade, many things had changed. Not exactly good changes though. Yes Naruto, what is it? He replied, placing his elbows on the wooden desk and resting his chin on his hands. I want to enroll in the academy, to become a registered genin of the Konoha shinobi. The cerulean-eyed affirmed, his stature stiff and robotic, as if he had been trained to remaining absolutely still. 8 years ago, the child had always had a problem keeping motionless. He'd fidget or shift in his seat almost constantly, his eyes darting around the room, as if looking for a way out. The Hokage shook himself out of his thoughts. He needed to stop thinking so much about the past. This was now, and this Naruto was real. Well, Naruto, I think that's a wonderful idea, but you are much too old to be placed in the beginning classes. I mean, there. I want to be put into the graduating class of this year, Naruto added, gaining a shocked response from the old man, twice in one visit now. Naruto. That's impossible. I mean, I know you must have had some training while you were gone, but you would be way too behind to just jump into the class now. The graduation exams are tomorrow. There's absolutely no way you'd make it, not with the disadvantage you're at. He sputtered, utterly surprised that he'd want to skip so far ahead. At least that trait had remained with him after all this time. Naruto's frown deepened. I can assure you, my skills are more than enough to pass your tests, Naruto declared, crossing his arms tightly across his chest. The third Hokage clenched his jaw, deep in thought. After a few moments of quiet, he dug to the bottom of the filed paper pile and produced a rather large file. This is a file that contains information on all of the academy students that will be participating in the tests tomorrow. There is only one spot left in this class, and even though I believe that you will be at a very high drawback, I will send you to Iruka. With you, you will bring a message from me, saying that I approve of your acceptance and full permission to participate in the graduation exams tomorrow. Lucky for you it's review day, so at least you'll have 24 hours to cram. The Sandaime said, a small smile stretching across his face, withered with age. The blonde before him nodded, standing up in a fluid lime motion. The Hokage swiftly wrote the note to the scarred Chunin and handed it to the newest addition to the graduating class. And with that, Naruto, the returned Jinchuriki, vanished into thin air. Astonish crossed the old man's face quickly, but it disappeared in an instant, replaced by a soft smile. Ah, Naruto. It will be interesting to see what you have learned from this winning teacher of yours. And that is how the first great ninja war came and ended. Now, this was beginning of the year material, so if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to ask, a Chunin said to his class, ending just as the bell for lunch rang. He had a scar running across the bridge of his nose, probably from a battle long ago. His class of 19 students fought and quarreled, trying to be the first out the door. He sighed. Even 6 years later, they still acted like children. He always loved these 30 minutes of quiet. It gave him some time to collect his being and focus on the next lesson, and ultimately, keeping his pupils' attention. This was a unique bunch, these kids, but definitely had its run of troublemakers. They would all be great ninja if they just took it seriously once in a while. The sliding door silently opened, drawing the Chunin's attention from his thoughts. A blond boy, looking to be around 12 or 13, walked calmly into the room, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Iruka gave him a once-over, noting on some of his unusual characteristics. Like the fact that he had whisker-like marks scored across both cheeks. He could only remember one person that had those kind of scars, and the boy had disappeared 8 years ago. Could it be? The boy slid a piece of paper across the desk to the gawking teacher, scanning the room in boredom, taking in his surroundings. Quickly examining the message, Iruka's eyes widened. Iruka. The boy you see before you now is none other than the missing child from long ago, Naruto Uzumaki. He came to my office only minutes ago, requesting that he be put into this year's graduating class. I seriously doubt that the boy will be able to pass the exams, due to the fact that he only has one day to learn all the material he needs to know, but I have decided to give him a fair shot. I can plainly see that the child has received some training from someone, I do not know at this time who, but I'm not sure if it would be enough. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. The Sandaime. To say Iruka was shocked was an understatement. He was completely flabbergasted. Here was the Yondaime's final wish, returned from the dead, wanting to jump right into the village's ninja forces. Taking a better look this time, the Chunin could see that he had changed very much from time he had seen him last. Well then Naruto, there's only about a few more minutes of lunch break, so you can take a seat anywhere you like, Iruka said. The blonde nodded in response, sliding quietly into a seat in the front row. Resting the back on the desk behind him and placing his feet on his desk, he began to rock back and forth in a slow motion, calmly awaiting his class to return. Hey Sasuke-kun, you're going to sit by me this time, right? A pink-haired girl cooed, running up to a dark-haired boy's side, bouncing up and down. He glanced over at her and rolled his eyes. Couldn't these girls ever give him a break? No, he stated darkly, picking up his pace, trying to get away from the nuisance at his side. The girl wilted, struck out again. But just as it looked like he was going to get away, his other number one fan tackled him out of nowhere. Sasuke-kun, a long-haired blonde yelled, enveloping him in a lung-crushing hug from behind. The poor teen struggled to free himself, desperately wanting to avoid the explosion that was inevitably going to follow. What are you doing to my Sasuke-kun, Ino pig, the pink-haired girl spat, marching up to the two. What did you mean you're Sasuke-kun? He's mine, forehead, she yelled in return, dropping from the raven-haired boy's back to confront her rival. He's in love with me, the cherry blossom cried. You're just delusional Sakura. He's in love with me and everyone knows it, Ino screeched. Both girls whipped around, ready for a race to attack the yummy Uchiha, but disappointingly to them, they could see his retreating back many yards away. With one final glare, the two broke out into a dash, competing to see who would get to the prize first. A cluster of students squeezed their way through the door, all trying to get in at the same time. Immediately, they all noticed the blonde boy waiting patiently in the first row, his hands behind his head and his eyes closed. A teen with a dog on top of his head quietly danced over to where the boy was resting and motioned for everyone to be quiet. He leaned down, reaching out to tip the chair back and send its passenger sprawling onto the ground. Don't even think about it, Naruto growled, causing the kid to scramble backwards in surprise. I thought you were asleep, he exclaimed. Naruto smirked slightly. Not everything is always as it seems, he answered, watching uninterestedly as the rest of the students filed in, taking their seats and waiting for Iruka to return. A dark-haired boy tumbled into the room, followed by a pink-haired girl and a blonde one, all of them landing in a tumbled heap on the floor, with Sasuke on the bottom. Sasuke, tell her, the blonde one yelled, her bangs spread messily across his forehead due to the tussle. Her light blue eyes were alight with determination and fury, her long blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail, and ending right above the small of her back. No, you tell her, the other one screamed, glaring at the girl on top of her. Her light pink hair flowed to her shoulder blades, and her eyes were a subtle green, shining with the same expression as the blondie. The poor boy pinned underneath them had dark charcoal eyes, complemented by raven black hair. Naruto's eyes narrowed. So, this is Itachi's little brother. Doesn't look like much. Get the hell away from me, Sasuke grunted, pulling himself out from underneath the pile of fangirls. Naruto scoffed. Pathetic, he muttered, rolling his eyes at the scene that was taking place. Sasuke whipped around, his eyes meeting Naruto's, one filled with disbelief and the other simply monotony. What did you just say? Sasuke asked, not sure if he had heard him right. He did not just call Sasuke Uchiha weak. I said you're pathetic, feeble, weak, Naruto repeated, gaining small gasps from around the room. He could feel a few of the girls glaring at him, but what did he care? Not like their opinions mattered. I'd be careful, newcomer. I can kick your ass from here to Suna, Sasuke growled. Explain why you think I actually care, Naruto replied, completely bored with the whole situation. I'm warning you now. I am at the top of the class, I could beat you down into the ground, the raven-haired teen seethed. Usually he didn't care what others said, but this kid, he acted like he knew he could beat him. He had called him weak. And that infuriated Sasuke to no end. Whatever. Naruto mocked, closing his eyes again. Sasuke had had enough. Okay, that does it. You, me, outside. Now, he stated darkly, his eyes brimming with determination. Nah, I'll pass, he responded. Sasuke slammed his hands on the desk, causing small cracks to appear underneath his clenched fists. That wasn't an offer. That was a demand. Sasuke snarled, already turning to walk out the door. Naruto sighed, at least it would be more fun than just sitting here. Training field. The class crowded around the sidelines, whispers rippling through the crowd of the upcoming battle. Sasuke stood on one end and Naruto on the other, his hands still in his pockets. Fight for real, Sasuke muttered, taking a stance. Naruto moaned. I don't think your fangirls would like if I killed you, Naruto answered simply. Sasuke growled, he was so going down. Taking a deep breath, he raised his fingers to his mouth, preparing for one of his infamous techniques. Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu, Kasa, a straw hat that the Akatsuki have been seen wearing. Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu, a large fireball that is streamed from the mouth. Used mostly by the Uchiha clan, seeing as they specialize in fire-style moves. Next chapter, Uchiha vs. Uzumaki. You couldn't beat me if I were dying on the floor. Chapter 3, Uchiha vs. Uzumaki. Uchiha vs. Uzumaki. Normal monologue. Thoughts. Jutsu. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. Thanks to all that reviewed on the last 2 chapters. I didn't expect such a great turn up. Thank you and keep up with the story. Here's to answer a question though. Fury Cutter. I have read the manga that said Itachi did in fact love Konoha and such, but that wouldn't make a very interesting story. I needed something for a dun moment. Lol. Come at me. Give it your all. Sasuke growled, his stance poised and straight, perfect in every way. Naruto on the other hand just stood in silence, his hands still in his pockets. I don't think your fangirls would appreciate if I killed you, the blonde answered smoothly, glancing at the barricade of girls boredly. Most of them wore a furious expression, they had had enough of this newcomer. He actually thought he could beat Sasuke. A few just looked on in interest, who cared what happened to the Uchiha. They needed some excitement in this class, and the new kid was sure stirring it up a bit. You can take him, Sasuke, Ino cried, pushing herself into the front line. Her eyes flickered to Naruto's face, and she faltered in her step for half a second, but she quickly covered that mistake up as soon as it had appeared. Sakura stood beside her, her eyes wide. She couldn't feel a chakra sense from the blonde, not even a glimmer of power that every ninja held. It was odd for a shinobi not to have any chakra at all, they were always born with a flare of the blue aura. And yet, this teen didn't have a speck. He was going to get creamed. I will beat you, Sasuke assured, breathing steadily, preparing for the jutsu that would finish the fight before it began. Naruto scoffed. You couldn't beat me if I were dying on the floor, he replied simply, the confidence in his tone overwhelming, and completely believable. Sasuke's eyes narrowed, his brow furrowing. Time to end this waste of time. Kaden, Gukaku no Jutsu, Sasuke yelled, sucking in as much air as possible, and then breathing out, a large stream of fire rocketing towards the blonde. Naruto didn't budge, not even an inch, as the flames engulfed his body, the burning inferno licking at the grass beneath his form, scorching a blackened circle in the field. The crowd's eyes widened, he hadn't even tried to move. Sasuke smirked, so much for his talk. But his smile disappeared as he felt a presence behind him. He whipped around, confronting the one that was angering him. How could you have dodged that? We all saw you, it hit. Sasuke growled, not one to be outdone. Naruto shrugged, kicking at the grass boredly. I merely sidestepped, he answered. Sasuke's eyes widened, shocked yet again. He had been surprised more times today than he had been since he started the academy. Why you could dodge my greatest attack, Sasuke muttered, talking more to himself than the boy in front of him. Naruto frowned, his eyebrows furrowing. Greatest? Seriously? I was hoping you were, more. The prodigy Uchiha ought to be the best. Like your brother. Naruto said, striking Sasuke's weak point. Just hearing the mention of that man made the Uchiha incredibly mad, a new sense of power rising up. He roared, leaping at the blonde, only to grab nothing but air. "Where'd you go, bastard?" Sasuke growled under his breath. A hard jab from behind caused him to sprawl forward, almost losing his footing. Regaining control, he spun on his heel, still bent in half, and aiming a swipe at the bottom of Naruto's shins, attempting to knock him off balance. The Jinchuriki simply jumped in his place, avoiding the blow, and flipped backwards, landing 10 feet away from where Sasuke stood, panting. The Uchiha glared at the boy. He was making him look bad in front of his entire class. Making the Uchiha look weak. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, the knuckles turning white. Iruka took a step forward into the field, raising his hands in peace. "Okay, very good Sasuke. Your jutsu is coming along great. Back to class everyone," he yelled, trying to break up the fight before someone really got hurt. Naruto nodded in agreement. "You should listen to your sensei. Don't want to get yourself gravely injured before our graduation test tomorrow," Naruto added, smirking on the inside. He just loved messing with Master Itachi's younger brother. "Quiet, I will see this fight through to the end. And I will be victorious," he snarled, flashing over to where Naruto stood in an instant. Performing a perfect roundhouse kick, he shot it at Naruto's head. But the blonde easily evaded the attack, slipping down and out of the grasp Sasuke was trying to get him in. Watching his opponent's moves, Sasuke forcefully pushed himself off the ground and came back around, this time going for Naruto's chest. But the newcomer danced away, his hands never leaving his pockets. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. "That's it." The raven-haired boy ripped a kunai from his holster and spun in around on his point finger expertly, clutching it so that it was pointed toward the ground, in a maneuverable position. He ran at Naruto one last time, set on making this his last attack. Naruto rolled his eyes, as if a kunai was enough. For his last move, Naruto decided to play it up a notch, just for the audience. He closed his eyes. Sasuke was taken aback for a moment, but quickly dove back into his ninja thinking status. "Ha, he's giving up. I expected more," Sasuke hollered, lashing out with his arm, the point headed straight for the boy's side. The class's eyes widened. Sasuke was going to kill him. Then, he was gone. Sasuke's blade met nothing but the air around him, again. Ino almost screamed when she saw Naruto appeared right behind the Uchiha, who had absolutely no idea he was there. With a swift and sharp jolt to his back, Sasuke was sent flying, skidding across the field, uprooting grass and dirt, and landed in a twisted heap in the upper right corner. Everyone held their breath as Naruto flashed over to Sasuke's unmoving body, bending down to where his face was buried in the ground. "So did I," Naruto muttered in reply. Sasuke clenched his jaw in fury. He was going down. Naruto smirked inwardly at the boy's anger and then calmly walked off the battlefield. A round of applause broke out amongst the boys while the Uchiha's fangirls just glared at the blonde's back, fire in their eyes. How dare he hurt their Sasuke? The only girls that weren't in a funk over the emo boy were Ino, Hinata, Tenten and Sakura. All were in shock that the Sasuke Uchiha, #1 top ninja in the class, had just been taken down by someone that had just randomly appeared that afternoon, and with no records of training beforehand. In an instant, Naruto was surrounded by 3 of the class's boys, one of them being the brunette that had tried to prank him earlier. "Man, you are awesome," said Teen exclaimed, the puppy on his head barking in agreement. "Yeah, you really showed Sasuke," the kid next to him added. He wore a brown pants and a cream-colored shirt, in which a red symbol was imprinted. Over that, he wore a short-sleeved green jacket, also accompanied by a long white scarf, reaching down to his knees. His arms and legs were wrapped in white bandages, and he donned the standard ninja shoe. On his cheeks were thin, red swirls, and he had that baby kid of face, innocent and smiling. He deserved that beat down. Acting all superior all the time. The last one said, watching the clouds roll by lazily. His brown hair was tied up in a high ponytail, spiked out crazily, looking like the top of a pineapple. He had black pants, and a netting shirt, covered by a light green short-sleeve jacket, ending at the top of his rib cage. He had 2 small, silver earrings hanging from his ears. He held out his hand, smiling slightly. The name's Shikamaru. And this is Choji and Kiba, he said. Naruto glanced at each of the others in turn and then stared warily at the hand offered to him. Slowly, he reached out to meet it, taking a loose grasp. Shikamaru smirked, Choji and Kiba smiled behind him. So, we never caught your name, Kiba commented. Naruto sighed, here we go. My name is of no importance, nor do you have a need to know it. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go and train. Naruto replied coldly, shoving his way past the confused academy students and walking a short distance, disappearing in a flash. In the center of a field, close to the edge of the village, Naruto was balanced on one hand, eyes closed. He breathed even and steady, focusing on being still and motionless, masking his chakra sense completely of course. The art of patience had always been harder for the boy to learn than ninjutsu. But after years of Itachi's training and words of wisdom, Naruto had grown accustomed to being silent and tranquil, becoming one with the world around him. His peace was shattered when a shrill whining erupted from his mic, causing him to snap out of his immobile state, sending him sprawling to the ground. Muttering profanities, he peeled himself off the forest floor, raising a hand to answer the call. You ruined my focus, he said stubbornly, already knowing who it would be. There was a chuckle from the other end. Always training. How about making some friends? Itachi replied, testing the child's intellect. Naruto sighed inwardly. You told me to stay as distanced as I can. Don't talk to anyone unless spoke to and never reveal anything of value. Naruto answered robotically, staring at his feet. Itachi smiled. Good, very good. Now, how was your first day as a spy? The Uchiha questioned, moving on to business. Naruto shrugged, momentarily forgetting that they were on intercom, not sitting next to each other. Fine, but quite boring most of the time. Class is full of pranksters and know-it-alls. Oh, and fangirls. Things didn't kick up until the fight, the blonde explained, picking at a piece of grass. Itachi's end was silent for a few minutes, and Naruto began to think they had lost connection. Master Itachi, he called, making a move to adjust the station. Fight? His teacher questioned hesitantly, as if afraid of the answer. Yay, your little brother, Sasuke. He's a pain in the ass, you know. Acting so superior. Naruto rambled. The dark-haired teen gasped, his eyes widening. You meet Sasuke, he said again, whispering. Yes, the 12-year-old replied. Itachi released the breath he didn't know he was holding, his thoughts running wild. Listen to me, Naruto, and listen well. I don't want you to get close to Sasuke, at all. He could ruin the entire plan, and then you'll be caught, along with the rest of us. Do you understand? He commanded quickly. Naruto sat in shock for a few seconds, but shook himself out of that daze quickly. Okay, course Master Itachi, he muttered in reply, still confused as to why his sensei would react like that. I mean, I was just his little brother, who had failed to succeed him in the Uchiha path as of yet. Good. Now, I must take my leave of you. The organization has a meeting tonight, and I am still one country away. Stay in contact, keep your lines open. I will be checking on your progress soon. And remember, stay secluded, Itachi explained, seeming cheery again. And then he was gone, the line buzzing with static. Naruto sighed and switched the device off, not really wanting to return to training. So, he easily jumped into a walk, strolling towards his old apartment. The sun was settling behind the Hokage's monument now, and the village people were beginning to retreat to their homes, the teens and drinkers coming out to play. Along the path, he could feel the hot glares on his back, the killing intent coming from almost every one of those people. During his training, he had built up an immunity to the stares and gawks of people, the fact being that they had passed through so many towns while traveling. But those looks had been on interest, or curiosity. He hadn't felt the hated glares of the villagers for so long, and it still got to him. Naruto sighed, his cerulean eyes letting a little sadness leak past their barricade of boredom. 8 years later, and still nothing has changed. The glares, and the empty feeling. My time will shine, the plan will follow through, and I will become a legacy, someone the villagers see in a new light. But the question now is, will I be able to bear it until then? So late. I'm really sorry. We've had test prep at school and then I have cross-country after school till Fort Manager. I don't really like running, plus the added fact that my sister is on this thing 24/7. The laptop is down too. What to do, what to do. I'll try harder. Not sure if the next chapter will be up by this Friday. I'll try. QB Kitsune. Next chapter, The Rookie Owns. Chapter 4, The Rookie Owns. The Rookie Owns. Normal monologue. Thoughts. Jutsu. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto, wish I did. Laughing face. Head note. I love all the reviews I got over the days, thank you guys so much. Now, for some comments on them. Narusakufan 36, AEJ 1085, and Sasuke loves Naruto. I'm really glad you guys are loving the story. It makes me very happy that people like my ideas. You're welcome for the update, and I will be continuing. I aim for a new chapter every week. Heavy25, thanks for the compliment on the diss. I actually got it from Drake and Josh, courtesy of Megan. It was worded a little differently in the story though, as not to plagiarize. Lol. Thanks for the review. I don't need to reply. Wow, awesome review. Your comments gave me a giggle, and I'm glad you like what I have going. I never thought I was good at battle scenes, but I'm happy that you think that way. Yes, Naruto is the shiz itch, and proud of it. Lol. And Itachi did do a pretty good job. And you haven't seen anything yet. Thank you for the mood remark, that's kinda my strong point. And I can't wait for the interaction either. Luckily, that begins this chapter. Lol. Thank you for this great review and for keeping up with my story. Your favorite plushie, thank you. Lol. I can't wait for some romance too. Kinda a sucker for that kind of thing. Like the Twilight series. OMG, best book ever. Lol, I'm such a fangirl. Fury Cutter. Sorry I didn't break all the bones in his hands like you requested, but don't think the idea dies there. Maybe, just maybe, there will be a little rematch in the future, where Naruto just so happens to break his hand. But you have to be good. Lol. Naruto's biggest fan, thank you for the message you sent me all that while ago. Means a lot. I think I've said that, but I'm gonna say it again. Just so you know. Lol. D. The academy class buzzed with excitement and nervousness, everyone talking in small groups, giving encouragements and making bets as to who was going to do better. Yes, it was the day of the graduation test, and the room was full of life, every student practically on the edge of their seats in anticipation for the upcoming tests, and hopefully, graduation parties. But the most concentrated subject was one of the class's most favorite pastime discussions. Did you hear about his latest adventure? Ino whispered to her group of friends, which consisted of Sakura, Hinata, and Ten. Yay, my mom told me that she had heard the captain talking about it. Amazing, isn't it? Ten answered, smiling. The three girls nodded in agreement. They were talking about none other than the hero that had spread across the nations in a matter of years, stretching from simply stopping burglars moving all the way up to taking down armies single-handedly. He went by the name of Fire Fox, the fact being that he knew so many fire jutsu above all others. When word of this hero first came about, a great fraction of the class believed that it was Sasuke, due to the fact that he was exceedingly excellent at fire-type attacks and that he disappeared before the village's forces of ninja arrived, not a trace of him left. But that assumption was quickly killed when more news of the unknown ninja's deeds leaked around the nations. He had been traveling all over the countries, starting in the Sea Country and moving into the lower regions of the Fire Country. He had recently been reported in a major trading town down south, called Kazuaki Port. He had stopped a kidnapping of the Lord's daughter, which happened to turn out to be one of their trading partners. The man had planned to hold the girl for a grand ransom, causing the Lord to become so poor, the trading facility would need to be shut down, leaving all the business for his port. Fire Fox was quickly becoming a legacy around the world. It really makes you wonder who they really are. Hinata stuttered, playing with her fingers while she spoke. Yay, and why he's doing it. Risking his life for people he doesn't know. Talk about a true hero. Ino replied, getting a dreamy gleam in her eyes. The boys behind them rolled their eyes, they could be such girls. If you ask me, he's probably in it for fame, or the money, Kiba commented, jumping into their conversation. Kiba. He's obviously a caring, merciful, and generous person, Ino exclaimed, shooting to defend the hero. Kiba scoffed. As if. He wants the high payment that goes with each deed. I mean, take a look at the facts. Lords, cages, wealthy landowners. And little old ladies, and poor people, and children, and even beggars. Sakura interrupted, smirked smugly. Kiba cut off, his expression turning into one of deep thought. Whatever. I still think it's all about the money, he muttered, leaning back into his chair. If he really wanted the riches Kiba, he would have revealed his presence by now, Hinata pointed out. The three other girls stared at the brunette in victory while he searched for a reason to diss the ninja in question. Finding none, his cocky smile dipped into a defeated frown. The four girls laughed. Point 1. Sakura said, high fives breaking out amongst the group. Kiba crossed his arms firmly across his chest, pouting as if he were 5 again. At that moment, Haruka walked into the room, causing all of the chattering students to scramble to their seats, falling over one another. Following the Chunin was the leader of the village, the Sandaime Hokage. His wrinkled face lifted up into a gentle smile when he saw all the gawking faces. Haruka turned to face the class, the attendance board clutched in his hands. Today is the day of the final exam, where your abilities will be tested, to determine if you are ready to move on to Genin. Me, and the Hokage will be scoring your assessment, and if you pass, you will pick up your forehead protector at the desk. Now, first up will be, Aburame, Shino, Haruka explained, calling out the first name on the clipboard. A kid in the back stood up and began the descent to the floor, avoiding any eye contact from anybody else. His outfit was simple, black pants, a long light green jacket that covered half of his face and black sunglasses, hiding his eyes. In a couple words, he was creepy and mysterious. But nothing more than that, seeing he had never said much, no one really knew much about him. The three disappeared into a room in the front, and as soon as the door closed, the talking continued, students scattering across the room to return to their groups. Ino, Sakura, Hinata, and Ten all huddled up, discussing the latest fashion trends. Behind them, Kiba, Choji, and Shikamaru sat relaxed, discussing their thoughts on video games and random ideas that came to mind. Across the room was the rest of the class, all gathering together to play a game of Genige, a card match they had apparently created in the study time Haruka always gave them at the end of the day. And lastly, the lone Uchiha sat in the front corner, furthest away from all the commotion. He had his hands folded, and his chin rested on top of them, staring into space, his favorite pastime position. The only one missing was the new kid, and every few minutes, someone's eyes would flash to the door, scoping to see if the newest topic of interest was arriving. About 5 minutes after they had left, they were back again, Shino wearing a shiny, Konoha headband. A few of the kids, Ood, and Ahhed, whispering to their friends about how that would be them next, strolling out of that room victoriously, and sporting a ninja headband. Akamichi Choji, Haruka hollered, waiting for the boy rise. The teen gulped nervously, clutching the bag of chips in his hands rather hardly, causing some of them to reduce to nothing but dust. His friends gave him an encouraging pat on the back, murmuring, "Good lucks," and, "You can do it." Slowly, he made his way to the steps and into the room, Haruka following close behind. A creaking from the door turned everyone's attention away from their conversations and to the door. And in walked the boy everyone had been so anxious to see. Still donning that, "I'm really don't want to be here," expression, Naruto walked calmly into the room, dropping into a chair in the first row, a good length away from the rest of the class and an even greater length away from Sasuke. Said raven-haired boy narrowed his eyes and turned away from him, glaring at the wall. Naruto smirked. "Hormones raging today, are they? Is that why you're acting like such an over-emotional girl?" Naruto chuckled, pushing the boy's buttons for the second time in less than 24 hours. Sasuke's eye twitched, his scowl deepening. He didn't bother to face the newcomer, but he couldn't take that, and Uchiha wouldn't be beaten. "You should watch what you say. I'll beat you down into the ground faster than you can say another come back," Sasuke growled. Naruto laughed on the inside, but remained calm and composed on the outside. "Really? Well, as I do recall, you aren't that much of a threat," Naruto answered, tilting back in his chair, closing his eyes peacefully. Sasuke growled under his breath. "I've improved," he promised darkly. Naruto's mouth lifted up in a tiny smile at that. No one could progress enough to beat me in only a day. Especially not you, Naruto replied. Sasuke whipped around, ready to give the blonde the fight of his life, but at that moment, Uruka and Choji emerged, the triumphant boy wearing a headband proudly upon his head. His friends burst out into a round of applause, smiling congratulations and admiration. Uruka's eyes flashed over to the trembling Uchiha, and followed his glare to Sasuke's target. "Ah, so glad you could join us Na," Uruka started, but once noticing the warning glare he was receiving from the blonde, he knew that the boy did not want his name spoken aloud. "Newcomer," Uruka finished, covering his mistake. A little late though, as the rest of the class had caught his misstep, and was watching the boy with thought, as though trying to come up with a name for him. Rhea Bulistoria. A dark-haired brunette bounced down the stairs, a confident smile stretched across her face. As soon as Uruka pineapple-like hair vanished from sight, 7 academy students surrounded him. "So, your name starts with a Na, huh?" Kiba inspected, gaining a group eye roll from the rest of the group. "I think you mean, Na," Sakura corrected. Naruto sighed, again. This is really beginning to grow annoying. "Yes, it begins with, Na. But that's all you're going to get, because I'm not going to tell you," Naruto answered harshly. "PSH, who said we wanted you to tell us? We're gonna find out for ourselves," Kiba replied, posing in a thinking position. Naruto scoffed. "Whatever," he answered, tilting back in his chair again, his long blonde hair shadowing his eyes. "Haruno Sakura," Uruka called, Rhea waltzing out proudly, the infamous protector shimmering on her upper arm. Sakura bounced up from her position on the floor and walked into the room, chewing nervously on her bottom lip. "Let's see. Starts within," Kiba pondered, his brow furrowing in thought. "Nawaki," Shikamaru threw out. Naruto just scoffed and closed his eyes. Maybe he could catch some zzzs while the genin wasted their time in an effort to guess the name they would never get. The blonde must have actually passed out too, because the next thing he knew was the feeling of the burning gaze of a certain Uchiha as he walked past him, heading into the testing room. He glanced around, shocked that he had been asleep for only a few minutes, when really, it had felt like hours. All around him, the newly graduated students were still on the name subject, their new headbands gleaming, ranging from their foreheads, their waists, their necks, or arms. Suddenly, at that moment, Naruto had an urge to wear one of those same protectors, to be marked as one of Konoha's ninja. But the boy quickly shook away that thought. "Don't get attached, don't get attached. Don't even think about it." "Yamanaka Ino," Uruka called, making it down to the last few on the list. Sasuke strode out of the exam room, his charcoal eyes shining with cocky victory. Strapped to his forehead was the Konoha headband that everyone here was striving for. As Ino passed the dark boy, she blushed slightly, but less than she usually would. A majority of the class was taken aback. "Wow, she usually tackles him if he gets in a quarter-mile area," Kiba commented, smiling mischievously. Ino whirled around and stuck her tongue out childishly before disappearing inside the room. Once the blonde-haired girl vanished, the group returned their attention to the other blondes sitting at the table, who met their gaze, completely clueless. "Now, we've been guessing for about 20 minutes now, and we still haven't figured it out. Could you just tell us now?" Kiba whined, rubbing his head as if he had been in intense thinking for more than mere minutes. Naruto rolled his eyes, they could be so pathetic. "I'll tell you one more time. There is no way in this lifetime that you could ever make me tell you my." "Naruto," Uruka shouted, calling off the last name on the board, which had been scrawled on quickly that morning. But the second those words left his mouth, he regretted it. Naruto shot him a glare so deadly, it would have burnt him to a crisp on the spot, and Naruto was trying really hard to too. The genin around him smiled in victory, their eyes dancing brightly. "So, your name is Naruto, huh?" Kiba said, barely containing a laugh. Naruto moaned and stood up, walking over to where Uruka stood in waiting. As he passed, he whispered one word to the chunin. "Nice," he muttered, ignoring the high fives and words of congratulations from the genin behind him. Testing room. Naruto stood in the center of the room, waiting for instruction. Uruka sat down heavily in the chair next to the Hokage, sighing before speaking. "You may begin." Make 3 able-bodied and working clones and you pass, Haruka explained, watching the boy with interested eyes. Naruto chuckled slightly. 3. I know Itachi said they were weak, but really. This is bad. Naruto formed a seal, an open hand over a fist. In an instant, 10 clones formed from the boy, spreading to either side, each one perfect. Haruka smiled, he hadn't expected less. Naruto smirked as well. I wish Itachi hadn't limited me, it's like being 7 all over again. Very good Naruto. You exceeded the limit with flying colors, he commented, carefully picking a leaf headband off the table. Holding it out to the blonde, he smiled. Welcome to the leaf, Genin Naruto. I'm really sorry. I have so much to do, I got sidetracked and before I knew it, 2 weeks went by. I'm gonna try and get 2 chapters out today and tomorrow, to make up for my slack. Next chapter, Mizuki and the Scroll. You are the 9-tailed fox. Tell me something I don't know. Chapter 5, Mizuki and the Scroll. Mizuki and the Scroll. Normal monologue. Thoughts. Jutsu. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. The night was cool, the only escape from the heat that radiated down in the July days. There was a calm wind from the north, causing trees to dance in the darkness, the leaves singing their own little tune. Walking down a barely visible path was the newly graduated Genin Naruto, staring silently at his feet. The Konoha headband was tied firmly to his forehead, shining in the night, symbolizing that he was a ninja of the leaf, or so they thought. Flashback, earlier that morning. Naruto grabbed the forehead protector thankfully, smiling slightly to the Hokage and Iruka. He raised it to his head, tying it securely. He turned, heading towards the door and his new Genin classmates. When he stepped out, the sound of chairs grinding against the wooden floors was all that was heard as everyone shifted from their conversational positions, searching for a leaf headband. Their eyes immediately landed on the shiny metal band, and once they did, smiles broke out amongst the crowd. The group in the front consisting of Kiba and the others, burst into a round of applause. When Naruto sat back down in his chair, he was greeted with words of congratulation and comments, and a few claps on the back. Sasuke just glared at the merry group, his charcoal eyes gleaming red with anger. Haruka strode out of the exam room, followed shortly by the Hokage. The old man walked to the front of the room, his face lifting up into a smile, the wrinkles on his face folding easily from the years of wear. Congratulations to you all for passing the exam. You are now all Genin of the Leaf, proud wearers of the shinobi symbol. The will of fire has sparked, and will hopefully burn brightly within you for many years to come, until your last breath for some. Your village is depending on you, looking up to you for guidance and protection. Don't let them down, become strong in the shinobi path. I can see that there is great courage and skill in this group, something I haven't seen in a long time. Be faithful, be willing, and good luck to you all. The Hokage spoke, his words brimming with emotion and confidence. After his little speech, he turned and walked out of the door, leaving the class in Iruka's hands once again for the last time. Tomorrow, you will be assigned to your teams and meeting your sensei. Be here at 8 o'clock sharp, and if you're not, it's back to the academy. The Chunin explained. Just as the last of the information left his mouth, the bell's shrill whine blew, calling out the end of the day. The students raced from the desks, tripping over one another, wanting to be the first out the door. Iruka sighed. New ninja, still the same immature children they were 10 minutes ago. It had been foolish to actually believe that one headband would change them all at once. Iruka smiled softly. Soon they'll realize just how vigorous a shinobi's life really is, and when that day comes, hopefully they'll be ready. End flashback. Naruto sighed, running his hand over the engraving on the cool metal. He was now officially part of the village, mixed in the sea of genin that would become his teammates in the next 24 hours. And for the next few months, Naruto would wait, anticipating Itachi's plan. The blonde walked into a rather large clearing, a skylight in the trees, showing the twinkling stars above. Being so far from the village, the glow of lamps and street lights didn't fade the wonders of the universe out. The boy smirked a little, a warm feeling filling throughout his body. He had always loved stargazing, ever since he started his journey with Master Itachi. Being ninja on the run, they rarely ever slept in a building. Most of the time they just pulled off the road and rested in trees, hidden from passers-by by the branches of the higher area. Naruto's infrequent moment of happiness was wiped away into curiosity when he heard a fanatical laughter coming from behind the shed. He walked silently over, for once his own thoughts taking over his natural instinct to walk away. He jumped noiselessly onto the roof, clambering over until he could see the object of his wonder. Down below, a shinobi was sitting in a patch of long grass, leaning against the wooden building. He was dressed in the standard Chunin uniform, his green jacket blending with the lawn around him. His white hair was the only flaw with his disguise, gleaming white like a light amongst all the dark color of the forest. Resting at his side was a large scroll, only a few inches smaller than the blonde himself. It was unraveled, and the man was studying the words that were splashed upon it. He. Once I learn these jutsu, the village will be mine. The shinobi muttered to himself, sounding as if he had gone partially insane. Naruto's eyes narrowed and his gaze flickered to the forehead protector on his head, the leaf symbol glowing brightly. Suddenly, the teen was filled with an emotion he hadn't felt in a long while. He felt determined, like he needed to stop the shinobi before him from committing the dastardly deed he was planning. Naruto couldn't understand. Why would he care for a village that hated him, despised him, before they even gave him a chance? Why did he feel like he wanted to stop the man, instead of stand by with a bowl of popcorn and watch first-handed as the village burned to the ground? The blonde shook himself out of his thoughts, coming to a conclusion. He simply wanted to stop him because if he took down the leaf, then Master Itachi's plans and dreams would be lost, be nothing. Naruto sighed, oh well. He coiled agilely, springing down from the roof without difficulty, landing with a soft thud in front of the traitorous shinobi. The man's eyes flashed up to his, full of confusion and shock. He certainly hadn't been expecting a visitor. Naruto stood up to full height, crossing his arms over his chest stiffly. I don't believe that belongs to you, Naruto said darkly, his cerulean eyes dully watching the man's reaction. The white-haired ninja just sat there in a daze, gawking, as he tried to grasp the idea that he had been caught. But soon enough, the man was forced out of his daze when Naruto took a step forward, his eyes on the scroll. The shinobi snatched the parchment away, rolling it back up with a flick of a wrist. It's mine now, he snarled, clutching it to his chest protectively. Naruto rolled his eyes, because a pair of scrawny arms could stop him from getting what he wanted. You're messing with the wrong guy, Naruto muttered, stepping towards him again. The man followed, stepping backwards in retreat. As if a lowly genin like you could take me, a chunin of the leaf down. I am Mizuki, and I am great, the man laughed. Naruto scoffed. You don't deserve to wear that symbol, the blonde continued, taking another step forward. He raised his head, boring his gaze into the man's eyes, his expression neutral. The ninja stumbled backwards. The feel of the boy's gaze made him feel uneasy, even if it was only a newly graduated genin. How could a child so young have such an intense sentiment of power radiating from him? Mizuki's eyes gave the boy a once-over, measuring him up if he decided to attack. His stare paused though when he got to the boy's face. His brow furrowed as he studied the whisker-like marks on his cheeks. They seemed oddly familiar. Realization hit, and his eyes went wide. A million different emotions ran through his eyes in a wave: fear, misunderstanding, confusion, suspicion, doubt, confirmation, anger, and hatred. His teeth clenched, and he smiled unexpectedly. You don't deserve the headband either. You don't even deserve the right to be walking amongst mankind. The name ninja is wasted on you. You aren't anywhere close to being a hero or a helper. He shouted, pointing his finger accusingly at the 12-year-old boy. Naruto shrugged. Whoever said I was a hero or a helper? He replied simply. Mizuki chuckled. You're right. Those are both human, aren't they? No, you fit different standards. You are a demon spawn, the lowest subject of life on this earth. You don't justify to be walking upon the earth, and you most certainly aren't worthy of a life. You were supposed to be killed off years ago, demon. He ranted, making it clear about what he was talking about. I wonder how you even survived. I bet you sucked the life out of people until you met your hunger for death. He added. Naruto scoffed. I'm not a vampire, the blonde said. The man laughed. Of course you aren't. You're worse than a vampire, or 1,000 enemy ninja marching from the horizon. You are the nine-tailed fox, the shinobi announced grandly, watching the teen's expression carefully. But to his shock, he just stood there, staring at him with the same dull expression he had been for the past few minutes. Tell me something I don't know. Mizuki's expression dissolved into confusion, fading away from the pure triumph it was only seconds ago. You knew, then that should make you even more furious, more compelled to kill that thing. But why would you do that? You'd only be killing yourself, and besides, he is your only ally. Mizuki exclaimed, the raging gleam retuning. Naruto's fists clenched. This was always the touchiest of subjects with him. It made his blood boil when he heard naive people addressing him as the demon itself, as if he were really the murderous killing machine, instead of only being its container. I'm blown away that you would even think of showing your face around here. I mean, returning to the place where everyone wants you dead, thinking that they would accept you for you. The idea is insanity. Naruto could feel the anger and rage bubbling up from the deepest pit of his stomach, the absolute killing intent becoming his own ideals and priorities. To see the man cold and lifeless was his goal now. The blonde had felt this only a few times in his life, twice when he was training with Itachi. His master had commanded him to seal away those feelings, they would only lead to his downfall in a battle. He explained that it was only his hatred toward the villagers coming back to haunt him, and his best way around it was to force it down and ignore, and to never use it. So Naruto did just this. He closed his eyes in concentration, centering his focus on the spot where he could feel the intent radiating from the most. He pushed against it, feeling the strong resistance straining his muscles. After a few seconds without a budge, the force began to move slowly, ever so slowly, back into the darkness, where it would hide, waiting for another chance to be released. He returned to reality, his breath coming short. He always felt out of breath when he did this, like it had cost him his entire store of stamina. Mizuki was staring at him in bewilderment, not knowing what he was going to do. Naruto inhaled deeply, and calmly said, just give me the scroll, and I'll forget this ever happened. But Mizuki wouldn't have it. He tied to his back with an awaiting string, his sneer promising a fight. Never. He chuckled in return, his sanity starting to come into question. Naruto sighed. Well, there was no way around it now. The blonde crouched and then vanished into thin air, seeming as if he'd never been there in the first place. Mizuki searched wildly around the clearing, looking for his seemingly invisible opponent. A blow from the back knocked the air out of his lungs and caused him to stumble forward. He whipped around, ready to counter with a blow of his own. But to his surprise, Naruto had already disappeared, on the move again. The blonde flashed into sight, his roundhouse kick aimed straight for the right side of Mizuki's face. It hit its mark, sending the Chunin to the ground. Naruto landed soundlessly in front of the fallen man, his expression unreadable. Sheesh, if the Chunin are this bad, then I'd hate to see the rest of the Genin class's abilities. The white-haired shinobi peeled himself off the ground, and while Naruto was thinking, he lashed out with a blind blow, heading for the center of Naruto's stomach. He danced to the left, avoiding the blow easily, making the man fall forward. He quickly regained his stature and wheeled around on his heel, sweeping Naruto's knee. The blonde started to fall backwards, a perfectly undefended position for an attack, but fast as light, he was back springing onto his feet again, his hands up and ready. His eyes flickered around the battlefield, planning his attacks and defenses, his dodges and strikes. He was drawn instantly to the sight of the treetops. They were outlined by a soft glow of yellow, signaling daylight. It's morning already. By the looking of the shadows that were beginning to emerge, it was still rather early, the academy probably wasn't even open yet. Still, he wanted to get there soon. The layout of the academy was only a fractional part of Itachi's plan. Better finish this fast. Naruto dodged another punch from Mizuki's end and answered with one of his own, enhanced with his chakra, making the strike 10 times as hard as his normal hits are. It hit dead center, right on Mizuki's left temple. The force from the blow was bone-shaking and made Mizuki fall to the ground in a daze. He shook his head furiously, trying to return his vision. I will beat you. I am the great Mizuki, he shouted, his eyelids drooping with unconsciousness. Well, might as well speed this process up. Yeah, great, unbeatable, blah blah. Naruto muttered, forcefully injecting a small shot of his chakra into one of the man's pressure points. His eyes went wide and in a matter of seconds, the shinobi was out cold. Naruto slung the man over his shoulder, untying the scroll from his back. Now to make my returns, take out the trash and then it's off to school, he murmured, hopping onto the nearest branch and heading off in the direction of the Hokage's tower. Later that morning, the class was buzzing with life, every genin excited for their first day as official Leaf Ninja. All but 3 people were involved in the happiness: Sasuke, who was just staring at the wall, Shino, who was inspecting a bug that had flown into the class, and Naruto, who was sound asleep in his chair. Iruka walked into the room, the door closing heavily behind him, jarring the blonde out of his slumber. Congratulations. You are on the last leg of your academy career, ready to move on into the world of the shinobi. Today, you will be assigned to your sensei, who will give instruction from then on how they see fit. So pay attention and listen up, Iruka said, looking each student in the eye as he spoke. When he was absolutely sure that everyone was moderately tuned in, he raised his clipboard and began to read out names and teams. Team 1 will be 6 teams later. Now, Team 7 will consist of. Hey, a Cliffy. Haha, I love Cliffies. Sorry if you guys hate them, but it creates curiosity and that's a good thing. Okay, I'm really sorry that it's taken me like a month to post, but I got like halfway through and I got stuck. I tried for this entire time to come up with something interesting, yet something that didn't give too much away too soon. It's harder than it looks, especially with my mind. Lol. Again, sorry, and expect another update the next Friday. I swear that if I don't do it, I won't go see the Twilight movie, I'll even sell my tickets to a hobo. QB Kitsune. Next chapter, Craziness, Conflict, and Cyclops. What did you say to me, kid? I said, you're a freaking Cyclops with a weirdo haircut. If this family story brought a smile to your face, please like, share, and subscribe to Fox Fanfiction. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt and imaginative stories to life. Thank you for being here.